Hey, what is going on, everybody? And welcome back to the channel, and also welcome to the brand new year of 2019. I hope you're excited, and I hope you're ready to learn a whole lot more about Swift development in general for this brand new year. Now, in today's video, we're going to focus our attention on building an application that's slightly different from the rest of the videos you'll find on YouTube. And basically, we're not going to be building any type of lists with a table view or, collection view. And we're going to be focusing on drawing out little fun objects inside of our application right over here. So the first thing I'll do is I'll give you a demo of what this application is able to do. So basically, I can just start scribbling on the canvas here and start drawing out these shapes. I'm going to clear out everything and start from scratch, literally. And what I'll do is I'll just start drawing out some eyes like that, and that's my nose. I can change the colors like this. This little slider on the bottom allows me to, change the width of my stroke. And here we go. We have a nice little face with some eyes, some nose, and some lips, and a chin down below. Now, the last thing that I can also do is I can hit the undo button on the bottom left, and it's going to, slowly remove the last lines that I've drawn inside of my application here. And so yeah, nice looking face with a couple of different facial features here. And I want to show you exactly how to put together an application that allows you to do this. And a lot of you guys might be looking at this and you might be thinking, wow, this is going to be really, really hard. But once I show you some of the techniques to building out this app, you're going to find that it's actually pretty darn simple. So why don't we go ahead and begin inside of Xcode right over here. And I've selected the iPhone XS Max, which is really hard to say. And the Max simulator is on the left here. So this is just basically a brand new single view app with a view controller. And here's my view controller here. Let me show you first how to actually draw things inside of your application view. This view controller has a view on it. So here's my view object. And the way to do this very, very easily is to create a class up here. And I'm going to create a canvas class that subclasses UIView. Now, instead of a UIView, you can override a method called draw with some kind of rect. And it basically allows you to, implement some custom drawing inside of your canvas view. So inside of here is my custom drawing. And how exactly do I do the custom drawing? Well, why don't we first add an instance of this canvas inside of our view controller down here, because, well, the red right here, the error is really bothering me. So why don't I say let canvas and set this guy equal to a canvas like so. Pretty simple stuff. Hope you're following along with this so far. We're going to now add our subview of this canvas. And we can do this because canvas subclasses a UIView object. And then finally, you want to, make a frame or perhaps use auto layout to lay this guy out somehow. I'm just going to use the views frame like that, and you can try to run the code again. Now, once you run this, I believe the view will be black. And here we go. We still have our white view, so that looks okay. Maybe if I do that, it might appear black. But it's not important. We're going to use our canvas right now. And then once we run it, we'll see it one more time yet again. Here we go. We have our object, and here's our canvas right here. So inside of this custom drawing method of draw, I'm going to grab a hold of the context that belongs to a UIView object. And you're probably not going to understand what exactly a context is until you actually see the code. So like with many other tutorials, it's very easy to follow once you see the code. And let me say guard let context equals UI graphics, get context. So I always forget what this is called. So I'll have to say UI graphics get current context returns the current graphic context, obviously. And because that guy is an optional, we just want to use the guard let optional binding statement to kind of get the non-optional value out. It's always a pain in the butt to work with optional values, so do this whenever possible. And the context here is a CGContext. You can do a lot of different things on the context, such as adding arcs and curves and ellipses and lines. We're going to be focusing on the lines down here for the most part. On the context, I'm going to call a method called stroke path. Now this is going to help you paint a line onto your application like that. So these guys are just simple lines that I'm drawing onto the context. And what I'll do is I'm now going to set up some lines, or basically the path for which to stroke the context. So here are my lines that I'll set up. And how exactly do I do this? Well, I'm going to say context, and to actually begin the drawing, you need to call the move and begins a new subpath. So just new. And then we are going to also set up the endpoint, which is going to be add line right here. And we're going to specify a start and an end point. So why don't we be a little bit clear about how we're going to define these two variables with start point of CG point, use x of 0, 0. So that's going to be the top left corner. And then we are going to establish the end point as a second variable, CG point of, let's see, x 100, which is roughly around here somewhere. So why don't we do that? Start point and end point right over there. And let me try to run this again and see if we can see our start and end point objects. All right, so I feel like whenever you grab the context right here, that's when your entire canvas becomes black. And obviously we don't want that. So what I'll do is, instead of my view controller, I'm going to set the canvas background color equals to white. That's going to make our canvas show up white like that. And once you run that, you'll see that you'll have your white canvas. And because we've overridden our draw to draw from 0, 0 to 100, which is right there, we're now seeing this black line being stroked using these two path objects right there. Okay, so this is pretty much how you start drawing lines inside of an application like that. All we're really missing is the ability to draw multiple lines inside of our canvas by touching and dragging our finger across the screen. And so there are basically two things that we have to accomplish here. The first thing is to track the finger as we move across the screen. And then the other thing is to perhaps capture multiple lines somehow. So the first thing I will tackle is to override this function called touchesMoved. Whenever you are inside of here, you can capture where your finger is inside of your view. And the easiest way of doing that is to access touches, which is this parameter here. You can access the first touch object, and you can call location in view. So this is pretty much a point object, and you are going to want to call that with nil. Finally, down here, you are going to want to print out this point object like that. And you see what I was talking about earlier, you don't really want to mess with these optional values. So whenever you can, use a guardlet to get the non-optional value out. And I'll run my code again. This is going to allow me to print out the point at which I'm touching. So if I start somewhere up here, you can see this being printed out down below. And so as I drag down, the Y value is going to increase. So you can kind of see it's now going up to about 600. So it goes up, 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 up. And then if I go to the right, the X value increases to about 300. So basically, this keeps track of the points at which I'm touching, right? And so that's kind of how I'm going to, start drawing the lines inside of my application. And this is going to be somewhat similar to a very popular interview question. And the question is, how exactly do I draw my line out? Well, the first thing I'll do is I'll declare a variable up here, and I'm going to set it equal to an array of CG point objects. And this is going to construct an empty array of CG points. Inside of here, what I'll do is I'm going to say line.append and append a new element of our point object like so. Don't think I want to see the print statement anymore. Hopefully you guys know what's going on. And the last thing I'll do is I'm going to go back to my draw function here. And instead of using the dummy data that I've set up, so this is our dummy data, obviously. We don't really want to draw 0, 0 to 100, 100. And let's comment that puppy out. And down here, I'm going to iterate through my line. So line, and you can say for each, and like that, and you get your point object here, and you can type out some custom code. Now, instead of using this for each, I'm going to use a different style of for loop, and I'll show you why in just a couple of seconds. I'm going to say for I and p in line dot enumerate it like so. And the reason why I'm using this is basically I want access to the index I right here. And so I is your index and p is now every point inside of your line. And inside of here, I really want to check if the index is 0. This is the very first point of my line, right? I'm going to say context.move to begin my line, and I'm just going to move to the first point. Otherwise, we are going to say context.add line with the next point p here. So we don't really want to use the for each. I'll just wipe that out. With this bit of code, we'll run this inside of the simulator right here. And as I drag down like this, we should be able to see something. But as you can tell, nothing is really showing up, and you might be confused as to why that is. Basically, whenever the touches are being moved up here, you need to tell your UI view, your canvas object, to redraw itself with set needs display, and it marks the receiver's entire bounds rectangles as needing to be redrawn. And so running this now, it's going to tell the OS to redraw the certain portion of your canvas that's covering up the entire application, right? So as I drag down now, you'll see my line being drawn out like so. Okay, now if I start clicking again, you'll see that the point that I start off with on the next line will be connected to the previous line because everything is currently being added to this line array. That's kind of why we have that effect. Inside of the finished application over here, we can draw multiple lines. So we'll have to take care of this in just a little bit. Before I do that, why don't we go back into our drawing function here? We can actually customize the look and feel of the strokes inside of our drawing function by saying context.set stroke color. You can apply any color you want. So you probably want to say something like, UI color red, CG color. The reason why you have to say CG color is because everything's expected to be in the context of core graphics, and CG stands for core graphics. The other thing that you can do is to set the line width like that. And if you do this, you can, set some large value like 10. I believe it's about 10 all the way at the end here. That's why this line is super thick. And if you want to set something else, such as the context and set line cap here, I think you can say but, which is a funny word. It's basically going to allow you to specify a rounded end. So you see it's kind of sharp right here. If you set a round but for the line cap, then it's going to be really round at the very beginning. So let me show you what this does. And I believe that's kind of what it's doing. So I'm not sure if the line cap is actually working, but that's the effect that we have there. Okay, so that's pretty good. The last thing I will show you in today's lesson before I let you go is to actually draw multiple lines inside of your app, right? So we have lines here and here. I'll probably show you how to take care of the undo in the next lesson. So let me go ahead and see how we can draw out multiple lines like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is basically an algorithm question, really. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to create another variable called lines. And this guy is going to be a 2-dimensional CG point array like so. And what I'll do now is I'm actually going to override the method of touchesBegan as well as touchesMoved. For the touchesBegan method, let me say lines.append. So basically every time I touch the canvas, I'm going to append a new line into this array. And I'm going to ditch this array here. Let's ditch this. So let's ditch this line. And for the lines array here, let me just append a new CG point line. So an array and construct it like so. So basically we're adding a brand new line to our array right here. And then instead of using our old line, what I really want to do is to get the last line out of this lines array. So you might want to do something like lines.last, which is going to give you an optional array like that. But whenever you do this, you can't really add things onto this array, I don't think. So let's try to do this with a point. Let me comment that out and try to run this again. You'll get this error that tells you that this guy right here is a immutable object. Click that, it'll change that to a var. So you can do this if you wanted to use this style of coding, which is perfectly fine. But instead of doing this, let me actually pop the line outside of my object here. So I guess the reason why this really doesn't work is because when you access the lines array last like that, I believe you get a brand new copy of an entirely new line. So I don't really want to do that. And this is actually a little bit better. So guard var last line equals lines dot pop last. So let me pop the line off of the lines array first. And then I'll append this thing right here, append the new point. And so let me comment that out. And once I do that, it's going to add this point onto the last line, but because we've popped it off, I want to add it back into the lines array like this. So this might be a little bit confusing, but the way these lines work is you kind of have to do this to make sure that the line is being captured inside of your lines array appropriately. So just make sure to use these 3 lines of code. And once you do that, you're going to want to configure this function up here again. So this is your drawing function, right? And we don't really have our line anymore, but we have multiple lines instead. So what I'll do, I'll say for the lines array, for each of my lines inside of that array, we have our line object. And I'm simply going to cut this code in here and paste that in here. And we're going to execute the exact same logic for each of the line inside of my lines array. All right, so that sounds a little bit confusing, and let me see if it works out. So 1 line, 2 line, 3 lines, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so the idea is basically every time we execute touchesBegan, we add a new line onto the lines array, and then as the finger is moving across it, we're accessing the last line that we added and we're appending the points onto that line. We're using this pop and append thing just to make sure that the last line is being correctly added onto the lines array. And once we do that, we call setNeedsDisplay, and this line of code, or these lines of code inside of this function, is going to execute, redrawing the entire canvas with the appropriate lines like so. Alrighty everybody, that's gonna wrap it up for today's lesson. In the very next video, I want to show you how to create these bottom controls down here with the undo, clear, and also these color swatches, so that whenever you tap on it and start drawing again inside of your canvas, you can get the new options and configurations to show up inside of your canvas object. Hopefully you're looking forward to that lesson. If you want to download the source code for today's video, you can find the link in the description below. If you want to learn more about Swift development, make sure to check out the couple of new courses down below. And that's going to be it for today. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye, guys.